Would you like to make some biscuits that aren't dense and heavy like you'd get from a 2-ingredient dough? Well, I have an option for you here with my light and fluffy biscuits, and they contain a secret ingredient that gives them their lift. I'll show you how it's done coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I'm a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Today is one of mine. It is for light and fluffy biscuits, and it's very similar to the 2-ingredient dough, except there are more ingredients, and one of them is a big game changer that will make these nice and fluffy rather than dense. So the ingredients that you're going to need for this: there is 1 cup of self-rising flour, or it's difficult to get self-rising flour sometimes up here in the Northeast. So I just make my own. So if you want to make your own self-rising flour, you just need 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, not baking soda, baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then you're just going to whisk that together. I'm just using a fork because that's what we're going to be using to mix our biscuits. You don't have to get too fancy here, but you do want to get everything incorporated so there are no pockets of baking powder. And there you have it, a cup of self-rising flour. Now, besides that cup of flour, we're going to need a 1/4 cup of non-fat Greek yogurt. Now, this is where you'd have your 2-ingredient dough. You'd obviously be using more Greek yogurt than this, but what we're going to be using is also 2 tablespoons of almond milk, and the secret ingredient, 1 can of seltzer. We're not going to use the whole can, we're only going to use a 1/4 cup. You're going to use the same amount as you used of Greek yogurt. And this won't go to waste. I'm going to make myself a little soda afterward. And I also have over here just a little bit of the flour that I took out, about 1 teaspoon or so I can flour the counter. So we have our self-rising flour here. I'm going to set that aside for a moment. So we're going to start with the 2 tablespoons of almond milk and mix that in with the Greek yogurt, because you want this Greek yogurt loosened up. And I'm not going to talk too much while I'm loosening this up, because if that scraping sound is too loud, I'm going to turn down the volume. So I'm just going to mix this together until it's a homogeneous, creamy mixture. And there you have it. It's much looser than it was. And the almond milk and Greek yogurt I had sitting out for maybe 15-20 minutes just to get them a little more to room temperature than if I were to mix them straight out of the fridge. It'd be a little harder to get them that homogeneous. Now, we're going to put in, and I hope my arms are steady for this, because the other day when I made them, I got a little splash over. But you're going to take 1/4 cup of the seltzer and just add that in. Now here you want to be very gentle, because you don't want to break up those bubbles. You're going to need those to help make this biscuit nice and fluffy and rise. So you just want to mix it gently. I mean, don't be scared you're going to make a mistake. You just don't, you know, it's like very loose. And because we had added the almond milk, it made it much easier to incorporate. And that's all there is to it. Now we are going to add in the flour. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to fold gently to get this all incorporated. So you see how I'm going from the outside, pulling under. Just make sure all of this gets moistened. And it's starting to come together. So we're just going to press this in, try to make it into a cohesive dough ball here without taking out too much of the seltzer. Now let me move this aside before I end up spilling it. And we're going to take the little bit of flour we reserved for the counter. I'm going to switch over to my spatula and move these things out of my way so I can get the rest of this flour and everything else in here. So now you're just going to fold the dough a few times over itself. So you're just going to take one end, pull it up, press it down, take another end, pull it up, press it down. Do this about 3 or 4 times until you can kind of hear that slap. So you want it kind of like pillowy. Seems very soft and pillowy. So now we're going to shape it. Now here you could do however you like. You could use a cutter. For me, that's a little too much work for a quick biscuit. You want this to be about 1 inch thick. And I know for me, up to this first line on my pinky is 1 inch. So I usually use that as my ruler and pick up some of this flour for your hands if you need to. And I'm going to make it into a round because I'm going to cut triangles out of mine. But you could cut squares, circles, whatever you want to do. Now this is going to make 6 biscuits. They're not like big, giant biscuits, but they're nice sized. And I'm going to go wash my hands before I move on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is to divide the dough, and I'm taking off the progressives because you know that gives me I mean, not that I have a great sense of proportion to begin with, but those progressives can throw it off. So I'm going to cut it in half as well as I can. And then cut it into thirds, each piece into thirds. And when you take one, if you can kind of get it away from the rest a little bit, it would make it easier afterward to put them on the sheet pan. Now I have a small sheet pan here that is lined with parchment. You could use cooking spray. I prefer using the parchment. And then you're just going to transfer these to your baking sheet. And you can feel it's a nice, soft, fluffy dough. Not like when you use the 2-ingredient dough, it tends to be a little heavy. That seltzer really enhances the rise of these biscuits. Let me wash my hands one more time and we'll do one more step before we go into the oven. Okay, so the last step before they go into the oven, I have the oven preheated to 425 degrees, and I'm just going to spray them with a little butter spray. You could brush them with some almond milk. You could brush them with some light butter. I just like the ease of just spraying them. And that can go away. Okay, so these are going to go into the oven, 425 degrees, like I said, for about 15 to 20 minutes. And you'll know they're done when they've turned brown on the top. And when you tap them, they have like a kind of hollow sound. But I will hopefully be able to demonstrate that for you when we get there. So I will see you in about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, I figured while that's in the oven, I'll show you what I'm going to do with the rest of this seltzer. I have my glass here. I'm going to get some ice and a little bit of water. Now the water is so I can mix half a packet of some drink mix. This one's grape, which my friend Lynn will appreciate. And I just want to mix that in before I add in the seltzer, because again, you don't want to mix all the bubbles out of the seltzer. And just stir that up a little bit more. But you don't have to stir it as vigorously because you've already gotten that drink mix incorporated. And there you have it, a 0-bite, 0-point, sugar-free grape soda. You can make it any flavor you want. So use those packets for more than just water. Okay, I'll be back once the biscuits are out of the oven. Okay, so there we have it, our light and fluffy biscuits. Now I'll see if I can hold one of these up to the microphone. See if you can hear that hollow kind of sound. That's what you're looking for. And obviously, I'm not great at portioning. What I could have also done, and I probably should from now on, is weighed out the dough and then separated it into exact weights. But it is what it is. Now I have been playing around with this recipe. I did try using some diet sodas in place of the seltzer to see if I could get some of that flavor from the soda. And I tried root beer, I tried orange, and it was subtly in there, but not enough to make it worth investing in a diet soda rather than just a seltzer. But I am playing around with a few more recipes with this, and one of them will be a very sweet one if it works out. But I will be letting you know about that as soon as I know whether it works or not. But there you have it, some light and fluffy biscuits. You can make a gravy to go with this, a sausage gravy. We're going to be having these for a lunch with the turkey white bean pumpkin chili I just made last week. So if you haven't checked out that recipe, I'll put a card up here as well as a link down below in the description box. So check that pumpkin chili out. It's very good. Each one of these is going to be 2 bites, and it's basically 2 true bites until you get to the whole recipe. If you ate all 6 at once, it'd be 13 bites or points. Otherwise, there are 2 bites or points each. I'm on the iTrackBites Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the WW Blue plan. So it's basically, like I said, like the 2 ingredient dough, but look at this give of these biscuits. You don't get that from the 2 ingredient dough. The seltzer really is a game changer. If you're following calories, each one of these is 82 calories. And if you're following macros, the fat is 0.3 grams, the carbs are 16.3 grams, and the protein is 3.1 grams. So anyway, you can find this recipe on my blog, as well as the other recipes I've personally done down in the description boxes. The link, as well as links to my Instagram, Facebook groups, and the other channels that I follow that do WW content, as well as some savings links for Fiber Gourmet and Skinny syrups. So I hope that you will give this recipe a try. Like I said, this is definitely a game changer. I'm also thinking it might be interesting to try this as a pizza. I think it'll be a much fluffier dough, like a regular pizza dough, I think. I haven't tried it yet. And also, making bagels would be definitely a way to go with this. So this can be as versatile as the 2 ingredient dough. Play around with it. If you don't feel like biscuits, try something else. And these biscuits, they're almost like a cross between a biscuit and a roll, but you could use them as a sandwich roll. If you divided this into 4, like to make bagels or rolls that were a little bigger, then it would only be 3 bites each. I'm not sure about the calories or macros on that. But I hope that you will give this a try, and I hope that you will join me next time. If you see this bag of apples in the back, that gives you a little clue as to what I'm going to be making for the next video. But until then, bye.